Story number 1. The Tiger Sickness of Southeast Asia. There are countless stories and folklore in the Hmong community about some strange sickness back in the old days when our ancestors still lived in the high mountains of Laos. One of those sicknesses is called tiger sickness. Usually it happens to an elder of the village. They'd be very sick and weak during the daytime. However, at nighttime, they would wake up as if they're not sick and mumble, whisper, or talk to someone or something invisible by the corner of the house. Eventually, the person suffering from tiger sickness will grow a tiger tail before they die. After the burial, they will rise back up as a tiger. These are just stories and folklore that are being passed down from generation to generation. However, there was a case in the 1980s that even our elders still talk about to these days. This case involved a grandma whom the villagers called Grandma Chua. Grandma Chua has no children, and her husband died a long time ago. Therefore, she lives alone in the village. Occasionally, the villagers will check on her. I remember one day, my mother and I were coming back from our farm. As we walked past Grandma Chua's house, my mother and I heard Grandma Chua moaning as if she was in pain. Every house in the village is made of bamboo and woven bamboo walls. That's why we could hear Grandma Chua. My mother and I went to her door, and as my mother knocked on it, we realized that it was not locked. My mother and I opened the door and saw that Grandma Chua was on the guest bed in the living room, and she was moaning in pain. My mother went and sat next to her and asked if she was okay. Grandma Chua told my mother that she had been sick for a few days, and since it's harvest season, everyone is so busy that no villager has come by to check on her. My mother told me to start a fire, and she will make Grandma Chua some rice porridge. Once my mother finished cooking, she put some rice porridge in a bowl, and she went to help Grandma Chua get up into a sitting position so Grandma Chua could eat. That's when my mother saw that Grandma Chua had grown something that looked like a hairy tail. My mother got scared, but she tried not to show it. I wasn't aware of it at the time. My mother quickly helped Grandma Chua finish that bowl of rice porridge. She laid Grandma Chua back down and told her that we will come back and check on her tomorrow. The next day, I went back to our farm with my parents since it's harvest season and everyone is very busy. Towards sunset, we came back to our village and realized that there were some villagers outside Grandma Chua's house. We asked the villagers what happened. We were told that one of the aunties in the village happened to check on Grandma Chua and found her unresponsive. The auntie went to get help, and that's how the villagers found out that Grandma Chua had passed. When the villagers put traditional funeral attire on Grandma Chua, that's when they realized that Grandma Chua had a tail with black stripes. Due to the Hmong history of people suffering from tiger sickness, the villagers began to panic. Everyone came together and did a traditional funeral for 3 days. Grandma Chua had some red copper bracelets on her wrists and ankles. Therefore, during the funeral, everyone had tried to take those bracelets off. However, due to the humid weather of Southeast Asia, Grandma Chua was swollen, and no one was able to take those bracelets off. On the 3rd day of the funeral, the villagers took Grandma Chua away to the other side of the mountain and buried her there. Shortly after Grandma Chua's burial, a young man went hunting with his bow and arrows. He came to an area where he heard something which he thought was the sounds made by an animal. The young man slowly approached the area where the sounds were coming from. As he hid behind the bush, he saw Grandma Chua coming out of her grave. He wasn't aware that Grandma Chua was buried there. After Grandma Chua got out and walked away, the young man got scared and ran back to our village. When he got back, he told the villagers that he saw Grandma Chua come out of her grave, and Grandma Chua has an elongated face. The elders of the village already knew that Grandma Chua would eventually come out of her grave due to her tiger sickness. That's why they didn't bury her at the village's graveyard and chose to bury her on the other side of the mountain from the village. After that event, some villagers would encounter a strange tiger with human hands and feet. This tiger would approach the villagers, but the villagers got scared and ran away. Everyone in the village knew that this strange tiger was Grandma Kua because of the fact that the tiger's arms and legs had copper bracelets on them. They believed that Grandma Kua had turned into a tiger, but for some strange reason, she wasn't able to morph past the bracelets, and that's why her hands and feet are still human. The reason this strange tiger is approaching the villagers is that she wanted the villagers to take those bracelets off. However, due to the fact that she's a tiger, the villagers were scared to go near her. One evening, I was coming back from our farm with my father. The sun had already set, and it was beginning to get dark when my father and I heard as if there were footsteps walking alongside us behind the bushes on the side of the dirt path. My father knew that it was Grandma Kua, so we both stopped, and my father said loudly, "Is that you, Grandma Kua? If it's you, let me see your arms. I'll try to see if I can take those bracelets off." There was nothing but silence after my father said that. We continued walking towards our village. Ahead of us, on the right side, was some bushy little bamboos. Suddenly, 2 arms came out from behind the bushy bamboos. My father told me to wait, and he will go see for himself. I waited as my father walked to the little bamboo bush. Those 2 arms are tiger, but the hands are still human. The copper bracelets were still there. My father was trying to take those 2 bracelets off, but he couldn't. He also didn't want to use his pocket knife because he doesn't want to accidentally cut Grandma Kua. My father then apologized to Grandma Kua because he wasn't able to take those copper bracelets off. After that, the 2 tiger arms withdrew back into the little bamboo bush. My father and I walked back to the village. Even till these days, if you happen to be in that area, or that mountain where Grandma Kua was buried, if you say, "Let me see if I can take those bracelets off," eventually, a tiger with human hands and feet will approach you. Thank you for listening. Story number 2, Half Eaten. We Hmong believe that there are 2 types of tigers. One is the normal wild tigers, and the other kind are the kind that are associated with evil spirits, or what we called pachong. Pachong are usually female. The word pa means female, and chong means shadowy. Therefore, pachong means shadowy female. They're short, with rotted, bloody faces and messy hair. Pachong have the ability to make themselves completely invisible by holding a branch of leaves. They are commonly seen at the graveyard or around a person that's going to die. Pachong are often seen riding on the back of a tiger. Pachong are responsible for tiger sickness. Often when they come to take a person in the village, they will first make the person sick. As the person gets sick, he or she will slowly grow a tiger tail before they die. Once they've died, the pachong would wait until the corpse is buried at the graveyard. Then the pachong will go and raise that person out of the grave and take that person away. Gradually, that person will turn into a tiger. These tigers are hard to kill because of the fact that they are associated with pachong. Before the tiger goes and attacks a farm animal or a person, the pachong would go first to assess the situation. If it's safe with no traps or other people around, then the pachong will let the tiger go attack the animal. Our elders believe that the tragedy in the next story involved a pachong tiger, or a tiger that is associated with pachong. Enjoy the story. One afternoon, my wife, Pa, and I walked to our farm. Once we got to the farm, we didn't have time to tend to our crops as it was already late for the day. We went into our farmhouse to get things ready for the night and also prepare for the next day. The following morning, we got up and ate some breakfast. After that, my wife and I went out into our farm and started working. Pa and I planted our crops over a hill. Pa was working on the side of the hill where our farmhouse is, and I went over to the other side of the hill. Right around 3 p.m. I was hungry, so I came back to the side of the hill where my wife is. When I got back, I noticed that something is wrong. Initially, I couldn't tell what's wrong, but it just feels like something is not right. I started calling for my wife, but she was nowhere to be found. I looked around and continued to call for my wife. Then I went behind our farmhouse and noticed an area where the grass and bushes nearby were all messed up, as if there was a struggle that took place in that area. I noticed a few drops of blood there as well. I was worried and scared at the same time. I ran back into the farmhouse and grabbed my rifle. Then I started following the little trail of blood behind our farmhouse. I came to a spot where I found my wife's hairband. I kept calling for Pa, but she was nowhere to be seen. I continued to quickly follow the trail of blood downhill to an area that has a little stream of clear water. I crossed the shallow stream to the other side and noticed some strange footprints. The footprints appear to be of a tiger. However, next to the tiger footprint is also a footprint that appears to be of a little child. I then followed the footprints into the jungle. Right around sunset, I finally found my wife, Pa. Something left Pa underneath a tree. Her bottom half to her left arm were all eaten by something. I knew it got to be a tiger, and usually, a tiger will return to finish the rest of its meal at a later time. I was sad and angry at the same time when I found my wife's lifeless body. However, I did not want to go near my wife because she's already dead. I decided to climb a tree nearby and guard my wife's corpse. I wanted to kill whatever that killed and ate my half of my wife. I stayed up in the tree and got my rifle at a ready position. Once it gets dark, the full moon is my only source of light. We live way up in the mountains, so a full moon usually makes it easier to see the surrounding. Right around midnight, I was getting a little tired and was losing focus. Then suddenly, I heard as if someone or something was walking around the area. I lifted my head back up to look around. I could hear walking, but I didn't see anything. Then I looked down towards my wife, and I noticed a difference in her position. Earlier, Pa was on the ground with her face turning towards the tree trunk. However, now her face is facing the tree where I'm in. I thought how strange that is. Then I continued to hear walking in the area. I started looking around again, and at the corner of my eye, I saw Pa started scratching her face. I turned back to look at my wife, and she really was scratching her face. My wife then looked up to where I'm at, and she started smiling and then laughing. Pa lifted her hand back up and pointed a finger at me, and with her raspy voice she said, "He's up there." It's as if Pa is telling whoever that's wandering in that area that I, her husband, is hiding in the tree. The walking sound stopped behind the tree where Pa is. I fired a shot at the tree. The sound of the shot echoes throughout the jungle. After that, everything was all quiet. I was so scared that tears were dripping down my face. After that shot, my wife Pa turned her head back towards the tree trunk, and she remained in her initial position until the morning. Once the sun came out, I came back down. I was afraid to go near my wife. From a distance, I said to her, "Wife, why did you do that to me? I love you so much, but why did you do that to me? You stay here, and I'll go get some villagers to help us." That morning, I ran back to the village and informed the villagers about the event that took place at our farm and the jungle nearby. I brought some villagers with me to the area where I found Pa. Once everyone's there, the elders of the group said that we cannot take Pa remains back to the village for a traditional funeral. Since she looked like that, we just have to bury her there underneath the tree. The men dug a grave, and we buried Pa's remains there. After that, we returned to our village. Story number 3, the Chua Tiger. The Chua Tiger is a well-known story in the Hmong community. with the events taking place somewhere between World War II and the Vietnam War. Many of our elderly still vividly remember the time of the Chua Tiger. According to the elders, a poor and hungry young man named Chusa was well versed in the black magic of transforming himself into a tiger. He acquired this knowledge from an old Buddhist monk living in isolation in a small jungle hut. The monk taught Chusa how to transform for hunting, emphasizing its use only when hungry and as a last resort, with unspecified consequences for overuse. Upon learning this magic, Chusa returned to the Hmong village. One day, at the farm with his brother-in-law, he expressed a craving for meat. When told they couldn't afford a cow, Chusa revealed his plan to transform into a tiger and bring one back. Chusa explained the process, using a woven bamboo bucket on his head and a specific ritual. The brother-in-law thought it was a joke. Then Chusa said to him, "I'm going to put this bamboo bucket over my head. I'll walk around our farmhouse 3 times. On the 3rd time, I will emerge as a tiger. But you must not be scared. It's just me. When I come back, in order to turn me back into a human, you must hit my head hard with a stick. The bamboo bucket will fall off, and I will turn back into a human." The brother-in-law witnessed Chusa transform into a tiger and successfully bring back a dead cow. The brother-in-law hit the tiger's head with a stick, and it transformed back into Chusa, revealing the bamboo bucket falling to the ground. Impressed, Chusa continued demonstrating his black magic, providing meat for his family every week. However, he started abusing his powers, leading to a tragic incident. One day, he returned with a dead teenage girl, causing his younger brother and brother-in-law to question his sanity. When they tried hitting his head, the bamboo bucket didn't fall off. Now Chusa began to feel the pain from being hit by the stick, when before he did not feel any pain. Terrified, Chusa's younger brother and his brother-in-law ran back to the village, leaving Chusa alone at the farm. Villagers occasionally spotted a tiger carrying a stick in its mouth, believed to be Chusa, but fear prevented them from approaching the tiger. Chusa carried a stick around in the hope that someone would use it to hit his head. Eventually, the Chua Tiger disappeared into the jungle. Yet, mentioning Chusa's name became taboo in the village. Those who dared to talk about him would mysteriously fall ill and die. Even today, elders who lived through that time refuse to mention his name, acknowledging the lingering fear and superstition surrounding the Chua Tiger. That's all for this video. Thank you for making all the way through and supporting my stories. Have a wonderful day or night.